Hi. Wow, I see several familiar faces here. Hi, Patrick. My name is Ronit Moore, and I would like to introduce a very special person to you. He's a powerful and dynamic speaker and coach. He's a local spiritual teacher. His name is Oren Harris, and he has only 30 minutes to speak to you today, and I'm sure it's kind of a challenge to do it in 30 minutes. His greatest passion is helping and inspiring people transform their lives, and he has been doing it for many years. He has shared the stage with famous teachers such as Neil Donald Walsh and Dr. DeMartini. You saw them at The Secret. And he conducts and facilitates discussion groups and seminars here in town, mainly in Unity Church and in Cathedral of Light. The main thing that distinguishes him is the fact that he speaks from his own experience. And the more you spend time with him, like some of the people here know, the more you will learn how powerful his message is, because it comes directly from his experience. There is nothing intellectual about his message. It's energetic. And when you tune into it, you are bound to expand. So please welcome Oren Harris.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing today? Good, good. Okay, we do have 30 minutes, right? And I just did a workshop yesterday, and it was like 10 hours, so 30 minutes, I'm like... But I will say this, in terms of time, we've heard that time doesn't exist, so we are going to transcend the limitations of time in this 30 minutes. So this 30 minutes can actually be like 3 hours, maybe even 30 hours for you. Especially if you kind of let your mind drift into the background. If you came here looking for intellectual stimulation, any of you who have seen me speak before know that I may or may not provide that for you. Someone asked me earlier, Oren, what are you going to be talking about? And I said, that's a great question. I don't know. I don't ever plan out any of my workshops, any of my speeches. I simply relax and just be myself, and whatever needs to be said usually gets said. So I have no plans. I have no agenda. My intention today is to share with you me, because that's all I have, right? So raise your hand if you've heard the term or phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Okay. That just popped into my head right before I got up here, and that's going to be the subject of my speech, actually, because here's the paradox of life. If you take an individual, and then you take the body of humanity, and then the entire universe, it's really one massive organism, okay? And we are extensions of that, parts of that. So kind of like, you know, we're part of the whole, and the whole in itself. Well, when it comes to change, true lasting change occurs from within. Our outer world is only a reflection of our inner world. Okay, and if you're sitting there thinking, yeah, I know that, I've heard that before, I want you to feel what I'm saying rather than just listen. Listen with your mind and listen with your heart, okay? And then you can receive perhaps what I have to offer, because all I have to offer is the sum total of all my experiences and everything in my life. But here's the thing that's interesting about change. We'll talk about changing yourself right now. Is that one of the fastest ways to change yourself is to stop trying to change yourself. And that's something that sounds like a contradiction. It's very paradoxical, and at the same time it makes sense. And so sometimes people ask me about my life. Like I did a seminar on law of attraction. They're like, wow, Oren, you manifest things so fast and you get everything you want. It's like, how do you do it so fast? How does it come so easy for you? And I said, well, the reason it's fast is because I don't need for it to be fast. I'm okay with fast or slow. The key word to highlight there is acceptance. Acceptance of what is initiates change, which sounds paradoxical. And so accepting yourself where you are is the thing that creates the greatest potential and possibility for change in your life. I just did a seminar yesterday on self-worth. It's called Mastering Your Self-Worth. And a person asked me, they said, okay, Oren, I get what you're saying. I get the value of mastering your self-worth. I get how that's a big piece of the puzzle, but how do I achieve that? And I said, you can't. But yet I'm sitting there doing an 8-hour workshop helping people achieve something they can't achieve, right? Well, here's the thing. You can't achieve something you already have. You can't get somewhere you already are. And at the very same time, there's things that you can do, things we do in this journey called life, that assist us in realizing who we are. And so right there's a distinction, a different terminology we can use. Instead of achieving things, instead of acquiring things, instead of changing ourselves, we're really realizing ourselves. You can't add anything else onto yourself. You. And when I say you, I'm speaking of the essence of who you are. Beyond your mind, beyond your form, beyond your personality. The real you. And actually the real you, your true nature, can understand and knows itself to be the truth of who you are. Your natural state is one of joy, compassion, love, all the things that we strive to attain or achieve or realize. That is your natural state. Okay? And so I'm not saying that there's anything bad or good or wrong or right about trying to achieve something. What I am saying to you is, in your journey, in this journey called life, when we believe we're moving from point A to point B to achieve something, just keep in mind that you're already there. And you're only realizing, you're only remembering who you are. And so, of the many things I could sit here and speak to you about that involve change, the thing that's on my heart right now is self-acceptance. Through self-acceptance comes compassion. Your true nature is compassion. Compassion is healing. Not just to the individual, to the entire organism called Earth, called the planet, called the universe. And so it's very interesting because there's a lot of, we get a lot of positive, for lack of a better word, values instilled in us, and virtues, things that are virtuous, whether it's, patience, trust, all these different things. But let me give you the potential downside of being virtuous or achieving these virtues. Here's the potential downside. The potential downside is if you say, I want to be good, I want to be trustworthy, I want to be honest. Here's a good example. I asked the lady yesterday, I said, what is it that makes you valuable? And she said, well, I'm a good-hearted person. And I said, what does that mean? She said, well, I do good things for people. I care about people. I want to do good things. I was like, okay, great. And I said, do you ever not do that? And she said, yeah, oh yeah. And I said, and how do you feel about that? She said, I don't feel good. And so, being a good-hearted person, I want to tell you, is a natural thing. Trying to be a good-hearted person is what sets you up in this world of duality where you're pushing back against something. And so the person who's trying to be good-hearted is also trying not to be whatever the opposite of good-hearted is. Do you get what I'm saying? And I asked her, I said, so what's the opposite of that? She said, well, sometimes I'm judgmental. And I said, is that something that you want to get rid of? And she said, oh yeah. I said, why? She said, because it's not good. And I stand here and say it's neither good nor bad. But if you make it good or bad, or if you make it bad, then you're going to try not to be judgmental. That's different than naturally being good-hearted. If you're trying not to be judgmental, then you've set up an identity for yourself that says, I'm not judgmental. Because judgmental is bad and I'm good. So then anytime you are judgmental, anytime you perceive yourself to be judgmental, you're automatically going to beat yourself up. It's an endless loop. It's an endless cycle of trying to get it right. Does that make sense? Do you get where I'm going with that? And so I told her, I said, I wouldn't focus so much on trying to be a good-hearted person or trying not to be judgmental, because anything you're trying not to be, you're actually putting energy into and you're being anyway. So when people come to me and say, oh, Oren, yeah, I was doing so good and I've been judgmental lately and I want to stop that. Yucky. I want to get away from that. That very get away from it, this action right here is judgment on self. And at the root of almost every bad feeling you have is a question that is a poisonous question. And I'm going to tell you what it is now that I've got you on the edge of your seat. At the root of every bad feeling you have, or things you call negative emotion, is a question. And that question is, what is wrong with me? And as long as you're asking that question, the universe, which totally loves and supports you, is going to give you an answer. And you will constantly be discovering things that are wrong with you. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You can't fix yourself because you're not broke. You can do things in life, you can be things that you can label improvement. You can expand upon things, you can realize things. That's the natural nature of life. That's not improving yourself. Your essential nature is whole in and of itself. It cannot be improved upon. So, at this stage of the journey for me, my life continues to expand. I learn from things. I learn from people. I learn things about life. I expand upon the joy I'm already experiencing, the bliss, the abundance, the bliss and absolute beauty of who I am. I expand upon these things. I do learn. I learn from situations in life. But that's different than improving. And what I'm saying here is extremely subtle, but if you're really feeling me, you can start to feel what I'm saying. It's real subtle, because if you look at my actions, I may read a book, I may meditate, I may do some of these things. I'm not trying to get anywhere, though. I'm not in the action of improving myself, because in order to improve yourself, you have to believe that you're broke in the first place. And if you believe that you're broke, life keeps giving you evidence to show that that's true. So I just wanted to offer you some ways, a different perspective of looking at the game of improvement, the game of expansion, whatever you may call it. I had a lady that was, I do a master's course on law of attraction, and I had a person that was talking to me about, yeah, I'm getting really good at focusing on my thoughts on what I want and not on what I don't want, and I was doing so good, and oh man, I don't know why this thing's not showing up that I want, Oren. Why is it not showing up? I mean, I did everything. I did my visualization, right? I focused. I feel real good about it. I've got it all down. I'm super crystal clear, and it's not there. What's wrong? And here's the real question she was asking. What's wrong with me? Surely there's something wrong with me, because I have not figured out how to master this thing, because the universe appears to not have given me what I want. So surely there must be something wrong with me. And I said, here's perhaps a different way to look at it. Look at it like math. It's mathematical. If you focus on this, these types of things show up. It's as simple as that. If you focus on this, there's nothing emotional about it. In Source's view of you, the universe's view of you, it's simple math. You focus on this, you get this. If that doesn't work, then go, oh, feel the difference. Oh, wow. Oh, I see why this stuff's showing up in my life. It's because that's where I'm habitually focusing. Okay, I'll change my focus, because I'm a powerful person and I'm empowered and I can change and make a decision. That's far different than what's wrong with me. Far different than what's wrong with me. Nothing is wrong with anyone. Okay, another perspective is, in any moment in time, if you are attuned to your own inner guidance, whatever you want to call it, source, God, inner being, higher self, doesn't really matter, infinite intelligence. If you are attuned to the true nature of who you are, you have a guidance system that guides you in each moment in time that tells you the shortest distance between 2 points. Point A being where you are and point B being wherever it is that you're saying you want to be. Whatever you're wanting to get, whatever you're wanting to feel, whatever you're wanting to experience. And your guidance system knows the best step for you to take. And that guidance is inside you, speaking to you. It could be a voice, it could be a feeling, could be something in your gut, it could be through the dream state, whatever. And it's up to you to follow that, but it is there. And so, really it comes down to simple. As you're making decisions in life, does this feel better or feel worse? So back to the judgment example, I told the lady, what if you looked at it like this? Wow, when I judge people, that feels worse. And when I look at people for who they are and I accept them, that feels better. So therefore, I like to feel good. So I naturally accept people now. That is completely different than saying I'm going to accept people. I'm going to be the I'm going to be the person who accepts people. I'm going to try to be the person who accepts people. And if you're wanting those things, I'm not saying anything's wrong with that. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with virtues like patience or acceptance. What I am saying is those can naturally arise out of you following your own guidance simply because it feels good to you. That takes all the judgment out of the game. That takes all of the illusion out of the game that anyone that source is sitting around judging you and doling out goodies depending on whether or not you're doing this thing right or wrong or good or bad. It has nothing to do with that. You are perfect and whole the way you are. So back to change. Change from without comes from within. That's one of the greatest things I can think of. Anytime you change something inside, it gets reflected back to you outside, whether you call it good or bad, positive or negative. And so if you want a new life, if you want a new world, if you want to create yourself new, the moment you make a decision that I'm going to be this person now, basically life, you have to keep up to speed with who you've decided you're going to be now. Because if you don't, challenges usually show up in your life. Like if you say, I'm this person now, I'm no longer this, that's who I used to be, this is who I am now. The reason why things come up that we feel like are tests or challenges is because once we decide we are this, source becomes whoever we say we are. And then it's up to us to be in alignment with that and to keep up with that. And if we don't, it can get a little bumpy, which is okay. Which is okay. And so that's one of the most difficult things I've observed for people about change is that they say, okay, I'm going to change. And you see, your reality, what you call the world, what you call your reality, what's in your frame of reference is only a reflection and manifestation of who you were. So the moment you decide you're going to change, now you're rewriting all the agreements with the people that were in your reality, whether your family, friends, peers, people who are well-meaning people who love you. But you have to have a strong enough motivator or inspiration for you to change. Because here's what most people do. They decide they're going to change. They go, well, this is the new me. And then they take a step forward. And then when somebody goes, that's not you, they go, oh, I feel bad. Oh, negative emotion, that feels bad. Oh, painful. And then they go right back to where they were. And they take another step. And then they think the world won't let them change. But you see, that's just testing the universe. Here's where things change. When you say, I am changing for me, and this is what I did. These are just Oren's words, okay? I'm changing for me because I'm that important to me. I am changing for me, and at this point, I have to change. I don't care if I am the Lone Ranger now, and I have no friends, no family, and I'm out on an island by myself. This feels good to me, who I've become, and I honor and I love myself and respect myself. That's when the universe moves. I think that's even what I don't know the Bible very well, there's a quote, something about a mustard seed. What is it? That's the faith of a mustard seed. And I want you to feel that. Do you feel how something so tiny, so simple in its movement, but yet it's so huge And that's what I see when people change. It's like they're testing, like they're 80% there and 20% not. 20% shows up as challenge in their life. 20% shows up as their own doubt they have about their own change they're trying to make. Then they go to 90%. And they're manifesting both. It's just a reflection of their inner world. And the moment you're like, that's it. I didn't mean to wake you up. Actually, I did. Wake up. I run a wake-up service, by the way. The moment you're like, I'm done. That's it. Everything changes, and it's like magic. And you're like, oh my gosh. Oh, people are giving me permission to change now. No, you gave yourself permission to change. No one gives you permission to change. They're only reflecting your inner state back to you, whether you call it good or bad. That's it. You change that, and it's like, I mean, I've seen that thousands and thousands and thousands of times. People are like, oh my gosh, it's so weird. So-and-so, they changed. No, you changed. But you got to find a motivation, and I would encourage you to find a motivation that only involves you. Because if it involves somebody else, then it's contingent upon somebody else or something outside you, which is fluctuating. Anytime we're looking outside of ourselves for anything, that has a limitation to it, because everything outside of ourselves is fluctuating. Not to mention, we're subject to the limitation of our own perception. So anytime we're counting on something, the goodies coming from outside of us, counting on, I didn't say anything's wrong with it coming, because stuff manifests from outside. But anytime we're counting on, or we're hypnotized into believing that it's actually coming from outside, then we're looking at the outside and measuring it to see whether or not we're getting what we want, which is totally distorted. You have within you the power. You have within you the knowingness. You have within you, because you're connected to everything, you have within you the resources for anything and everything that you ever have wanted. And if you count on source, I'm going to call it source, for that, for your goodies, the things that you say you want in life, then it can manifest in a myriad of forms. Then you're not projecting expectation out onto the world or out onto the people that you know and love. And then when they're changing, it's like, oh, they feel, they're playing out the plan for me, everything's good. And then they change, like, oh, I've lost something again. Which is kind of the same thing if we're counting on our own worth to come from outside of us, our own value to come from outside of us. Everything outside of us is changing. So guess what changes? Your value changes. But guess what? It can't change. It can only change in your experience of it. Does that make sense? I'm trying to fire hose you with as much good stuff as possible in 30 minutes. What I want you to know is you're not broke. No one's broke. Start to change your terminology. There is a journey called life. We do learn from relationships, situations. I'm not saying that's an illusion, because if you're experiencing it and you're feeling it, it's real. But change your relationship to change. Change your relationship to what you call the game of improvement, self-improvement, because you can't improve yourself. Change it to self-realization or something much lighter. Because as long as you're trying to improve yourself, you inherently think you are broke. And when you are feeling bad, or what you call bad, just be with it. I know it's ironic, paradoxical, whatever you want to call it. But that's what changes. Acceptance, compassion transforms. So instead of trying to move away from things, away from these parts of yourselves you believe are bad, that are really serving you if you look deeply into them, everything serves you. Once you can see the truth of a situation or a part of yourself or something that you call bad, and see how it served you, and see how it serves you to a point where you're grateful, to a point where you may even have tears in your eyes, instead of going, oh, I'm so glad I moved away from that thing. Oh, I got away from that. Good for me. I'm not judgmental anymore. I passed that test. You see, because if you do that, then you think you've moved away from this thing that's so ugly and bad. Now it shows up in someone else. And when you're around other people who you label judgmental, you just have that yucky feeling. You're like, oh, I don't like being around judgmental people. Ugh. Ugh. Ah. Or arrogant people, or whatever other myriad of things you could choose to disown in yourself. Do you get that? If you feel that feeling about somebody, it's a good indication that either you're doing the same thing, or at some point you did the same exact thing and you moved away from it, but you moved away from it. It means you're pushing back against it. It means you're saying it's bad, get away, and it pops back up your entire life until you learn to love it, which is just you learning to love you, which is part of why we're here. And I haven't spoken much about the earth, but can you see how when you start with the individual, and when you start with the inside, and that change starts to manifest in your physical world, it is the changing of the earth, the universe. That's where it starts. You are magnificent, beautiful, perfect, divine beings now. Not when you heal all of your stuff, now. If you have anything in your past where you're like, man, I'm sure glad I got rid of that thing, look around, pay attention. You'll notice it's somewhere in your life manifesting through another person, through another vehicle, giving you, the universe loves you so much, or giving you another opportunity to love that aspect of yourself. Heck, you may even have kids, and then your kids will express the very thing you've been repressing. Because they're just mini-me's, right? Running around, they're you. You get a second chance because at least with your kids, you're like, oh, I love my kids. I can love my kids unconditionally because I can't love myself unconditionally. So they give you an opportunity. They express the things you've repressed. And then you go, oh, I love, and then saying I love my child, oh, I can love my child unconditionally after they stop driving you crazy because they're you, reflecting you back to you. Then you've transcended that. Anyway, looks like my time's almost up here. Thank you. Thank you for being you. I mean that sincerely. I haven't met very many of you. I live here in town. I do workshops. I'm around. This is what I love to do. This is me, just being me, and it's effortless to me. And whatever you see in me, I am actually part of you. So, and you part of me. And you don't need to understand that with your minds, but if you soak it in, if you let it in, if you breathe and feel the truth, somehow that will change the world. Thank you.